Dude, I'm the psycho. A lot of the dogs are going to be barking with me this weekend. I got the Giants plus 7.5 right now on DraftKings. I have the Giants plus 7.5 as one of my best bets, but I also have the Giants money line as one of my best bets. Here's the thing, Jay, out the gate, you hit the point, the nail on the head. I mean, these guys played the last week of the season. Jalen Hurts was out there. The Giants rested all their starters because they had nothing to play for, and even with Davis Webb and a bunch of backups. I mean, it got dicey towards the end. Like from a betting perspective, the Giants covered, but like they definitely made it interesting towards the end. And the Giants, they ran out of time, a little too late. But I think they could have potentially won that game if they got their act together a little bit earlier. But now that they have their starters in play, Jalen Hurts has the bum shoulder. He was even in a presser today saying that he knows, and I'm paraphrasing here. He knows every week that there's a bounty on him. He's not that worried about Giants players targeting his shoulder. I don't know where that came from, but okay, Jalen. But he's dinged up. Lane Johnson on that offensive line, he's been dinged up as well too down the stretch. And this Giants pass rush can get home. Dexter Lawrence is looking as one of the top 10 potentially defensive linemen right now in the NFL. He's showing why he was drafted 13th overall a couple of years ago. Kayvon Thibodeau is going to be a force to be reckoned with for the next couple of years in the NFL, in my opinion. And the Eagles can be beaten on the ground, and Saquon Barkley is looking like vintage Saquon Barkley. He's looked like that all season. He's been healthy. He's going into a contract year potentially, and Daniel Jones, Brian Daboll, and Kafka, the offensive coordinator, they've really seemed to have unlocked DJ this season, and they're using his athleticism to the most of his ability. And I think you're going to see a lot of design runs with DJ like we saw last week against the Minnesota Vikings, and I think that's going to continue here. No disrespect to the Eagles, they are the better team on paper, but the Chargers were also the better team on paper last week. So like that really doesn't mean anything at this point, in my opinion. The Eagles have the better defense. It's going to be interesting to see Darius Slay. Who's he going to lock down? There really isn't a true number one receiver for the Giants. So I guess Darius Slayton would be the number one guy, but Isaiah Hodgins has really come on. So I can't wait to see how they're going to scheme these guys up, and hopefully Slayton gets rid of the stone hands and will actually catch the ball. He did great last week up until the final drive, and he's lucky Kirk Cousins went Kirby, because this could have been a very different discussion going into this game preview. But give me the Giants plus the points. Give me the Giants on the money line, and go Big Blue.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way the Philadelphia Eagles attack the Giants is by loading the box, making sure you shut down Saquon Barkley, and you make sure that Daniel Jones throws from the pocket and beats you. I still have not seen that from Daniel Jones. Yes, the biggest games he's had this year is against the Minnesota Vikings, both in week 17, and then obviously last week. But then again, who doesn't throw a party on the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, for God's sakes, Mac Jones looked like he was the next Tom Brady with 382 yards and 3 touchdowns that night. So Mike White, Mac Jones, name it, people have gone up to Minnesota and absolutely carved them up. So I'm not ready to jump on the Daniel Jones bandwagon just yet. Now, obviously, if he beats the Eagles, we'll have a different discussion, right? So that's going to be a good discussion we'll have. But I just think the Philadelphia Eagles are just a superior team, and Philadelphia is a little bit out of sight, out of mind right now. So obviously they're kind of buried. We haven't really seen them play like good football since Jalen Hurts hurt his shoulder. So they've just been kind of lurking. But let's not forget just how dominant this team was. Like at one point they were 13-1, and we were asking questions about are they going to lose again before Jalen Hurts hurt his shoulder. So I think the Eagles are going to steamroll. I think it's just too much for the Giants to overcome. The Giants are a great story. Like what Daboll has been doing has been nothing short of a miracle. Like with the amount of with how he's turned that franchise around. No playoff appearance since 2016. 2016. I'm sorry, won their first playoff game this year in a long time. So it's all very good, positive trending for the New York Giants. But I think the Eagles are just way too good for the Giants. Now, the one thing I do want to say is, I think, obviously Dave Gettleman gets a bad knock in his time there. But let's not forget, he did draft Dexter Lawrence. He did draft Andrew Thomas. Like, two of the key linchpins on the offensive defensive line that are blossoming now are because of Dave Gettleman. Like obviously he's not perfect. I'm not saying that. But there are some good pieces on that line, both defensively and offensively, to build for the future.
Exactly. And Jay, correct me if I'm wrong. Prior to 2016, that was the boat photo, right, with Odell and everybody.
Correct. Last time they were in
Miami.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I guarantee you, Brian Daboll was like, there are no boats. There's no vacation. There is no nothing. You guys are going to stay up in East Rutherford. We're going to get our shit together, and here we go. But no, I mean, it's a hell of a story. And Jay, do you figure Daboll's coach of the year? Because I mean, I think at this point it is what it is. Like, I think he is the guy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He is coach of the year. Now, the only thing I have a little bit of a concern, Puma, is I think let me phrase this in a way that makes sense. I'm not saying they're fraudulent. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is their resume this year and their schedule this year and the wins they've had this year are against some pretty bad teams. And let me run you through the schedule, right? So week 1 you beat the Titans, okay? That's a great win. Well, we thought it was a great win at that time, but the Titans aren't that great in all likelihood, right? They beat the Panthers next week, fine, whatever. They lost to the Cowboys. They beat the Bears, great. They beat a bad Packers team, right? They beat a Ravens team who I will give them as a good win. Sure, we'll mark that as a good win. They beat the Jaguars. It's another great win. Seahawks, they got steamrolled. They beat the Texans. They lost to the Lions. They lost to the Cowboys. They tied with the Commanders. They lost to the Eagles. They beat the Commanders. They lost to the Vikings. And then they beat the Colts. And then lost to the Eagles. Like, besides those 2 wins, and even those, we can be like, I can see some flaws. The Jaguars weren't playing that well, and the Ravens, obviously they had their issues back then as well. Like I just feel like there isn't like any single time they've played like the Cowboys or the Eagles or somebody growing their schedule, they've lost, right? And I'm just saying that they're not fraudulent, but I'm just saying their resume and what they've done so far isn't that great. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to you or no?
Yeah, it's like one notch above fraudulent.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like they really haven't beaten somebody of value since that Ravens game, and I guess the Ravens were playing well at that point, but even the Jags win at that point, like the Jags are playing some pretty bad football in the beginning of the year. So,
right,
like I mean, looking back on it now and seeing where things have turned out with the Packers being bad, and obviously some of the other wins they've had, like I just think they're ripe for the picking this week. I think this could potentially get ugly very quick for the Giants.
Right. I've been saying for the most part all year, especially with, your brother, the biggest fan of the Giants that I've ever seen. I mean, I've been consistent saying that I think personally that this team is a year or 2 ahead of schedule. So, like, we're going to find out, like, if it's going to, are they going to be able to hang and keep it close, or is the point going to be proven they're going to get their heads, beaten in? I'm leaning towards the trend continues. I think they're going to hang. But, I mean, dude, all bets are off. At this point, it goes with any sport. Like, just get to the playoffs and see what happens. And
of course.
This is it. And, I mean, is this Sirianni's, like, first real taste of the playoffs?
No, he got demolished last year in Tampa Bay, remember?
That's right.
Yeah,
so, like, is he gonna be loose this time? Is he gonna be a little bit tight? Like, there's so many storylines going into this game.